Welcome to All-Star Fandom. This week's episode, I'm flying solo, but I'm going to go into games that just emotionally wrecked me. I mean, by the time I was done, I was just folded up in a corner. So, this week's episode, we're going to look at 3 games that have folded me up so far, emotionally wrecked me. Let's just jump into it. Hold your tears if you can, and let's talk about it. Once again, welcome to All-Star Fandom. I'm your host, Dion, and like I said, I'm flying solo this week, but I'm going to dive into 3 games that have emotionally wrecked me so far. Now, on this list, you might look at and see, oh, where's The Last of Us? I've heard the stories about that one. I haven't played it yet, so that's on my list. So as of right now, before Last of Us, that's what we're going to get into. But before you do that, make sure you subscribe and do all the social media stuff, share with a friend, and maybe even drop your fandom in the comment section below. Let me know what you're a fan of, and you can probably come on here and we can chop it up together. And also Instagram, All-Star Fandom Show, like that, like some stuff there. Again, drop some comments there in those posts as well. So we're gonna go with number 3. My number 3 selection for my number 3 emotionally wrecked game, the first Red Dead Redemption. Now, again, it's a Western. Westerns are near and dear to my heart. My dad loved Westerns, and then I loved Westerns. So I love a good Western game. But this one was weird because at the end, I didn't think I would get that emotionally invested. John Marston, you play as him, and he's an outlaw who was a part of a gang, and the FBI they recruited him to take down all of his old gang members. So if he does this job, the FBI, they'll let him go, they'll pardon him or something like that, where he can go live out the rest of his life with his wife and his son on their farm. So we make it to the end, you beat the last big bad of the gang, and you ride home it's like a Tarantino movie almost. You're riding and there's music playing, and you make it home and you think the game's over. You do a few chores around the house. You get to know your son a lot more. You get to know you get to spend more time with your wife and the family. And then there's a knock. Well, not a knock really. The FBI rolls up to your house. You go out the barn door, but before out the barn door, he waves his family off to run, and it's just him. He's out there. He's standing right in front of his barn, and in front of him is just a sea of FBI agents. Now, if you've played this game, you kind of think, okay, I might can get out of this. Well, spoiler alert, you don't. You have enough time to take out a few of them, but the FBI that you work for guns you down, comes out of nowhere. I see his family looking off, at him being killed or hearing the gunshots. And you're like, I just invested in this character, and he was backstabbed, shot in the front, just shot up, riddled with holes. But and at that moment, that's where the eyes was oh God, that guttural no just came out like that. So, but I will say one thing about Red Dead Redemption: you do get your redemption, because the son of John Marston grows up and goes and takes care of every single one, and you get to play that as well, at least for the main FBI agent who who screwed over John Marston. But that's my number 3 emotionally wrecked game, Red Dead Redemption. Number 2. So this might be just out of the blue. I guess, it might just come out of nowhere, or I won't say out of the blue. It might be fresh is what I meant. Spider-Man for PS5, the remastered version. It was for PS4 originally. I didn't expect that game to emotionally fold me up at the end either. Now, again, spoilers are coming, but all I know is they do typical Spider-Man stuff to you. Spider-Man cannot truly ever become Spider-Man until he loses almost everything. Look at the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Look at Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's, even Miles Morales. That's Spider-Man. You don't truly become Spider-Man until you lose something. So they put you as the apprentice to Dr. Octavius, which we all know, he becomes Doc Ock. But he's such the nicest human being in that movie. I mean, in that game, because it was almost like a movie in that game, and you get so emotionally invested in him because he's losing functioning of his arms, and he's slowing down, and he does these mechanical arms so he can keep up. But he turns out he's the villain, the main villain of this entire story. You know how emotionally, attached we get when it comes to Peter Parker and his villains, but that's not even the worst of it. Another Aunt May death scene, because there's essentially a virus that's spreading throughout the city. She works at a shelter in New York, and she's helping all these people, and she gets sick. And Doc Ock also has the antidote, the antivirus to it. So Spider-Man beats him up, we get the antivirus, and he takes it to the doctor, and he says, yes, we can make enough for this. It's gonna take hours and stuff though. And Aunt May is like right in the bed next to him. She's coughing, she's coughed up blood and stuff like that. And Spider-Man, still in mask, is having like this emotional anxiety sort of attack. Like, what if we use it on one person? Or can we just use it on one person? And he wants to use the antidote or the cure on Aunt May. And the doctor says, or the scientist says, like, that won't be enough for everybody else. We can't save everybody else. So Spider-Man legitimately has to choose between his aunt, who's raised him, and Uncle Ben is long gone as well, that raised him, or save the rest of New York City. There's a back and forth when Spider-Man is like, just, should I do it? I want to do it. And Aunt May wakes up and she says, like, let me see my nephew. She's known that he was Spider-Man the entire time. He pulls off that mask. His eyes are watery. At that point in time with her, she knows what's going to happen. And then he asks her, like, what am I supposed to do? And she essentially says, you know what to do. And I was like, oh God, all right, fold it, just ragdoll. My body was like Woody, the Andy's coming and Woody just falls to the ground. That's exactly how that folded me up. He went back and forth, and the thing that what was really, really bad about that one, or emotionally wrecking about that, she leans her head over. She's pretty much about to die right there. Spider-Man is holding her hand, crying, sobbing, and I swear, Sony, you're wrong for this, but all you could hear was the beep, beep, and it got dark, and it went like a few more times, and it flatlined while Peter was there crying. I was like, oh God, that folded me up, man. I was like, oh, okay. Oh. And then and then you expect me to like still be happy to swing around the city and stuff. It's wild, man. But again, Spider-Man for PS4 and PS5 remastered, that game just emotionally wrecked me by the end, because if you're Spider-Man, you're gonna lose a lot. But when you're playing as Spider-Man and you make these connections or these selections, and you just get to a point where you're like, I'm Spider-Man, and now I'm going through this right with Peter Parker. My hand should have just been on his shoulder, like, man, I feel you, or I should have been there with him. That's how I felt. But that's my number 2. So my number 1, emotionally draining, emotionally wrecked, folded up in the corner game, Walking Dead, the Telltale Season 1. That game, I'm speechless, because I've never played a game in my life that left me as emotionally drained as that game. So let me set it up for you. So you're this guy from Macon, Georgia, Lee Everett. He has a whole full backstory, but again, spoilers are coming. They put this little girl with you named Clementine. Like, you save her from the babysitter. Her family is probably more than likely, and they do end up like zombies essentially. And you take care of her the entirety of the game, and she's like your conscious too. So if she says like, I don't know if we should be doing this, you have to it's a game where you make it's more like a point and click game. It's for PlayStation, and you can still play it now, PlayStation, Xbox, computer, wherever you game. But it's a point and click, and on top of that, you make decisions that dictate other things that happen within the game. So if you're a skadoosh and throughout the whole game, you're gonna probably have a skadoosh ending. No one will like you. You will be, no one will trust you. But they put Clementine with you to make you feel like, okay, this is the right thing to do. We should be doing this. That's not our food. We'll figure out another way. So she's a moral compass, and you get so attached to her because you're saving her almost every episode. She's helping you almost every episode. And the whole thing that we were doing was like hopefully trying to find her parents. So we get closer to the end and she gets taken. And Lee Everett, our main character, the guy we just went through like 4 episodes to this finale with, gets bitten. He gets bitten at the end, essentially. And you have two decisions: walk around with 2 arms, walk around with 1. The decision is completely yours, but you know that he's dying. He's moving slower. He's barely making it through. And he finds the man who takes Clementine. We see we destroy him essentially. We go out into this like big area in Savannah where there are just zombies everywhere because we brought them there, unfortunately. And we get to this point where like we're held up in, I think it was a jewelry store. It was some sort of store. And you have to make these decisions because he's dying and Clem is crying. And there's decisions to be made because he doesn't want to turn into a zombie and attack her. She's pretty much on her own. You play that little last bit and you're telling her all this advice. He calls her Sweet Pea. He's in the corner. She's crying. He's dying right there. And they make you make a decision at the end as Clementine, whether you kill Lee so he won't become a zombie, or you leave him there because you can't kill him. And he's sitting there, he's smiling at you, he saved you, he's telling you where to go, and you have to make that decision. Again, 5 episodes of a game of getting to know these characters and making these relationships with these other characters. And at the end, it comes down to you and the little girl that you were saved. And the girl, she kind of saved you too, you know? And I've never, at the end of a game, I've never just like dropped the controller and was like I took a minute. I took a minute from that game when it was over to be like, oh man, like that took me through it. So if you haven't played Walking Dead, that game is phenomenal. Even the series after that, the seasons after that were really good, but none of them emotionally drained me like that because they put a little kid with you. Clem was probably like 8 or 9 years old during the time of that game, and she's just your moral compass throughout the end of it, and you save her, and then you're her protector throughout the entire thing, and just emotionally draining by the end of it. But those were my top 3 like folded up emotionally draining games I've played so far. Again, so far. Let me know what you think about my list. Again, I said so far, I haven't played Last of Us, and I'm sure that's going to be on somebody's list, and it's on my list to play. I just have to make it through a few more games before I can go to that one. But let me know what your most emotionally draining game is, or the one that wrecked you so much that you were like, man, I need to, I don't know, play 2K for a little while. Well, NBA 2K can get it can be a little heartbreak too in that one, right? But let me know in the comment section below which game folded you up like an accordion, and we can talk about it because I want to know. If you like this episode, go ahead and hit the like button, do all the social media stuff as well. Thank you for letting me get this off my chest because those 3 games have sort of been weighing me down when it came to emotionally draining games. But again, I've cried to a lot of games. I've cried to a lot of Marvel movies. I'm just that person. Yeah, Black Panther folded me up like 3 times too. But anyway, as I stop rambling, don't forget to follow All Star Fandom Show on Instagram at All Star Fandom Show. Go ahead and subscribe here on YouTube. Share it with a friend, share it with a family member, even an acquaintance at work. How about that? So, but until next time, hopefully I'm not flying solo next time. But until then, thank you for taking the time and peace.